Pat was from Geraldine, Alabama. Graduated high school with my mom. He had a hit song in 1970, I believe, either 69 or 70.
Okay.
Called More Today Than Yesterday.
Right.
And you've heard it your whole life, man, in every elevator, in every restaurant, in every doctor's office you've ever been in.
Right.
One of the great pop songs ever. Well, Pat lived in California for decades, decided he wanted to move back to Alabama with his family, and he opened a bar, a music hall, a club. So Tim Hammond, who I played with in Runner, got a call about trying out or, having a jam just to see if it would work out. And
is Tim older than you?
Yeah, Tim is, I think, 4 years older than me.
Okay.
And I'm sure if the guys were here, they would tell the story's probably different than I'm remembering. But I want to say Tim was definitely one of the key people in saying, you need a guitar player? Well, you should check out this guy, Damon Johnson.
Right.
And ironically, I had met Gene Pledger earlier through Phoenix, the band I had called Phoenix.
Okay. Was Gene in that band? Or
no, he wasn't in the band, but he was around Gunnersville, and we did a couple of events. I remember there was like this outdoor festival thing by the lake.
Right.
And we met through some mutual friends, and hell, I think Gene and I even went to church together or something. Man, it's been so long. So anyway, headline was Pat Upton, Tim Hammond on keys, Gene on drums, Mark Thompson on guitar and vocals, Brad Gaither on bass, and I wound up becoming the guitar player. And I was playing in headline down at the club. It was called PJ's Alley, and was still going to junior college because my plan was to get my associate's degree there and transfer to Auburn because I wanted to be an electrical engineer. So I was taking all kinds of calculus and physics and nutty stuff like that.
So this is what is kind of interesting is that you had another plan.
Oh yeah, man! Music was just a killer hobby.
Right.
Just an amazing hobby. Make a few extra bucks is always great, but I was working in a grocery store and just doing all kinds of stuff, man. Just like living life. I married my first wife, Jamie, right around that time of headline.
Okay.
And our daughter Heather was born in '87. But from the time we found out we were pregnant, which is when I was in headline.
Okay.
That's when I got the call about Split the Dark.
Right, in '88, right? You were
87.
Okay.
87. Yeah.
You went over there in 80. You went to Birmingham in 87.
87. And I moved to Birmingham because of Split the Dark.
Right.
So Split the Dark was a really prominent regional band.
Because Mark Phillips was in Hotel.
Yeah, Mark Phillips and Tommy Calton had been in Hotel. And I was in awe of those guys. They were a whole other level. I was aware that they had made some of their own records.
Right.
I'd heard their songs on the radio.
Right.
They had just won the MTV Basement Tape Awards, which MTV had just come into existence.
Right.
And they had a thing for unsigned, unknown bands called the Basement Tapes. Well, Split the Dark won the very first one. So, they were getting a lot of press, and I'd seen them play down at Auburn. At like fraternity parties after a ball game and stuff like that. And they were hands down crushed, in my opinion, every other band out there.
Right.
Because everybody was playing AC/DC and Skynyrd, which I love that.
Yeah.
But, these guys were doing Police and Steely Dan and Billy Joel and Yes. It was like, that was my one phase of kind of being a music snob. Those guys over there are playing Brown Eyed Girl.
Right.
But these guys are playing I've Seen All Good People.
Reeling in the years.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's where I intersect. See, in '88, I went to my girlfriend's prom, which is Vestavia High School. And y'all were playing the prom. And I remember reeling in the years in my head. And I remember You Really Got Me.
Yeah. Did I sing You Really Got? No, Mark sang You Really Got Me. But I had the.
But you know me, I was a guitar player by this point. So I'm like, I got to meet the dude playing You Really Got Me. So I go up and I meet you that night. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that you came into Music Alley, where I worked, and then I realized you were the same
guitar player,
same
from
guy
the
from the prom.
Wow,
so then
what a
that's kind of where I intersected with you at that point. But yeah, go ahead on your story. You Split the Dark.
Yeah, Split the Dark, and that lasted 87, first part of 88. And 88, I played in a band called Witness.
Right.
They had a record deal with Arista Records, Debbie Davis, great singer.
Right.
They had already made their album. They'd already recorded their album.
With Brad Gillis?
But Brad Gillis and Neil Sean.
Both were on it, right?
All the guitar stuff.
I don't know how to remember that stuff. That's so how I remember that.
Yeah, I think Brad only played on one song. Neil did most of it, man. I was, a big fan.
Yeah,
of
Neil Sean.
Great player, man. So, I was already committing to doing music full time.
At that point. You had changed your mind.
Yeah, because the whole Split the Dark thing was kind of like, all right, well, I got my 2-year degree, and I had a new daughter, a new wife, and it was like, okay, well, the music thing was working out. You started making little progressions forward as far as profile and the size of the places, and I don't know, man. I still didn't have any master plan. I was just getting to play music.
Right. You just kept on going.
Yeah. So there was a period there of almost like one band to the next. Sure. So it was Phoenix to Runner to Headline to Split the Dark to Witness.
So one thing I want to ask you about Witness before you go on. I may remember this totally wrong. Just correct me. But you played a show. Was it with Fleetwood Mac?
In Witness?
Yeah. Or was there a stadium show that you did?
We did do a stadium show. It was with Leonard Skinner.
That's what it was.
That was in 88. Yeah, we shared management with Skinner. Charlie Brusco was our manager.
And was it Fulton County?
It was Fulton County Stadium.
Man.
Big deal, man.
Dude.
Big deal. And it was when Leonard Skinner had just kind of done the reunion. None of us thought it would ever happen.
So
it happened.
I'm thinking to myself, you're in Witness. What was the biggest crowd you played to before you went to Fulton County Stadium?
Nothing
like that, right?
No, nothing to compare with that.
What was that like?
It was wild. I have some great memories of that night. I remember the Georgia Satellites were on the bill as well, who I loved.
Right.
I got to tell Dan Baird, he would never remember it. He wouldn't even remember me right now. But I got to tell Dan how much I had covered Keep Your Hands to Yourself. Because that was like when I first moved to Birmingham.
Yeah, that's huge.
I was playing that song. It was kind of like the bar song. And I could sing it very authentic with my
with your
Geraldine accent, So, I got to thank Dan for that and to see those guys play. Love the Satellites. And the whole being around Skinner, like, there's Gary Rosington, holy shit, just. And, man, if it had all ended right there,
that was good.
And I went back to school, it would have been amazing. Like, wow, what a great experience, man. I'm so lucky. It was huge, man. But unfortunately, the Witness thing didn't last.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. I learned very quickly that just because you have a record deal, in a lot of ways means nothing.
Right.
If something lucky doesn't happen, if a song doesn't start to catch fire and take off, if there doesn't become interest, or you've got a rich uncle that wants to keep, investing money into it.
Right.
We just didn't have any of that. And Arista put out the first single, and it just didn't do much of anything. Got a few stations that played it, but not much,
Never took off.
And
so you go from Witness to what?
I went from Witness to the Delta Rebels.
Right.
The bass player Eddie Usher, he got called about an audition with this band in Memphis, the Delta Rebels. So he
What's
said
the connect? I remember there's somebody in the Delta Rebels that has some music connection, right? There's somebody in that band.
Well, there's a couple really, because when I went up to audition. After I got the gig, the singer R.T. Scott, who was a legend in Memphis and northern Mississippi, which is where he's from, so that whole area, he played there his whole life. He was like the kind of the redneck version of Mark Phillips in Memphis.
Right.
A star. So he's like, well, yeah, man, this is my history, and he was telling me all about that. But the other guitar player was some guy I'd never heard of named Eddie Shaver.
Okay.
And Eddie Shaver's dad is the legend Billy Joe Shaver.
Okay.
The great Texas songwriter.
Okay.
He wrote all those Waite
Right.
Jennings songs and outlaw country, man. Legit.
I remember there was that it was a cross, to me, was a cross between AC/DC and Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, that's what the Delta Rebels were. But see, like right there, the story we're talking about Eddie Shaver and his dad.
Yeah.
See, man, that kind of stuff was not on my radar
Okay.
before the Delta Rebels. And I regret that. Like, I wish it had have been.
Wish you'd known more about his.
Yeah, not just about Eddie, but just that kind of music. My dad listened.
Okay.
My dad listened to Waylon and Merle,
Right.
some, but there was more pop radio and pop artists, more Glenn Campbell and things like that.
Yeah.
So, Eddie Shaver, man, fucking changed my life, Jeff.
Yeah.
Changed my life. I've told this story a few times in recent years in interviews, but I cannot oversell how important the experience of being in the Delta Rebels was. I showed up with my JCM 800, a bunch of pedals, an SPX 90 in a rack,
Right.
my whatever it was, a Kramer or some do-it-yourself guitar with a Floyd Rose, and I just thought, I am the shit. And I remember RT saying, yeah, man, the band is going to be killer. You and Eddie Shaver. And I'm like, cool, man. And in my head, I'm like, well, I hope Eddie Shaver's cool with being the rhythm player because I'm the damn lead guitar player. Right. I was just in Witness. So this is like a story. It's like out of a Western, all right? I go back to Memphis for the first official rehearsal. I'm early. I set up all my shit. Everything sounding killer in my mind. The bass player, James, shows up. He's great. He and RT had played together forever. They're like red dirt, North Mississippi, the real thing, man. These guys were great. Eddie Boyd from Witness was on drums.
Yeah.
And this other fucking guy is late, this Eddie Shaver guy. So we're running through the songs and Russell's singing and I'm playing every solo because I'd learned the record. He had already made his record too. Okay. Like Witness had. Right. So I learned all the songs, all the solos. And I don't need charts or notes. I got it down. Right. And so we played, man. And we're like, what's up? So all of a sudden we're in the middle of a song. And the door swings open, and some dude comes walking in with a leather jacket, a gig bag on, hair's all down his eyes, cigarette dangling out of his mouth. And I just remember he had on these badass cowboy boots that were worn. I was like, wow, those are cool. And I thought this was like a roadie. He was that disheveled. Right. So we're playing, and the guy looks up at RT and they make eye contact. And then that was when I went, oh, this is him. This is the guy. So, I'm still like catching all the parts and just doing it. So as I'm playing, out of the corner of my eye, I'm observing this guy because he's already such a striking figure that I'm like, what's going on here? He sets this Mesa Boogie Mark III head on top of this beat up cabinet that looks like it's been drugged behind a truck. He turns the cabinet around and faces the wall with it. Right. Plugs in, the speaker cable into the amp. Opens up that gig bag. He pulls out this Stratocaster that looks like it's been drugged behind the same truck on the same chain. And a guitar cable. Now remember, I'm over here with fucking Guitar Center next to me, man. Right. All this stuff. All your gear. He straps the Strat on, pulls a cord out, plugs it into the Strat, plugs in the front of the amp, takes his arm and cranks all the knobs, and he hits one note, Jeff. One note. Boom, like that. And it's like I passed out. It's like I was in a car accident and woke up from a coma.
Wow.
I just went, wow. Wow. Life change. It was as life changing as the story I told you about the garage band and making noise the first time.
Right.
Life change. And I'm just grateful that I had the humility and the brains to recognize that something great would just happen, as opposed to like getting jealous or getting uncomfortable. And he and and RT, I'll never forget the look he gave me as soon as Eddie hit that note. He looked at me like, "See what I mean, motherfucker? It's on now."
Yeah.
So, man, there was some legendary gigs in Memphis by the Delta Rebels. Legendary.
Yeah.
Because we were loud and Eddie and I became immediate friends. It wasn't a competition.
Yeah.
But we were both showmen. Like we were like, all right, if it's my solo, I'm going to burn the stage down. Right?
I remember.
So,
Norms.
Yeah, Norms. Thank you. That's the name of it. Norms in Birmingham.
Just came to me.
Al's Crossroads, the Nick, Norms.
And y'all played Norms.
Norms.
And you burned the house down.
Thank you.
It was incredible.
Well, listen, man. In 1989, when I joined the Delta Rebels, I couldn't tie Eddie Shaver's shoestring. That guy was beyond my skill set, man. He's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to musicians across the country that know about Eddie, and he was like Stevie Ray and Jeff Beck rolled into one. He was that good.
Yeah.
He had that much command of his tone from his hands, and I'm just grateful for that. I mean, I could sit here and talk about Eddie for an hour. I literally could, man.
Yeah, I remember the whole vibe of that band, the energy.
Yeah,
the sounds between both of you. Just
well, yeah, and that was a key event too for a lot of reasons beyond just music. I was really starting to get serious about songwriting. RT was huge encouragement for me.
Right.
I remember him giving me,
and you did have some great songs on that.
Well, RT's a great songwriter. Yeah. He's a great songwriter, and he was my first real lesson in that. No one else before had said, "Listen, yes, you're a great guitar player.
Right.
You got to start writing songs."
Right. So we go from there to what's next.
When Delta Rebels fell apart, and it fell apart for lack of a lot of things, not the least of which was, financial backing from the label. Same thing. They put out one single, nothing happened.
And dropped.
Done. Yeah. But I had met a couple people. I met a music attorney. I met a couple managers, a couple producers, and I just, there were all these bands getting record deals. Appetite for Destruction had really turned me on my head. The first Black Crowes record gained another just huge impact on me.
Okay.
So I came back to Birmingham and decided I wanted to put a band together.
90.
So I guess you and I had met around 90.
Yeah, 89, 90.
89, 90, yeah. So that's when I put a band together called Chyld.
Yeah.
And the absolute focus of it was to make recordings, put a band together, try to shop and get a record deal.
Yep.
Still thinking that a record deal was the be-all, end-all, even after I'd been through Arista with the Witness and Polydor with the Delta Rebels. Mm-hmm. So Chyld was my first legitimate, okay, I'm a songwriter with a singer. Mm-hmm. My buddy Hamey, who was the singer in Chyld.
Hamey,
and we made some demos. I called the music attorney that I had met in the Delta Rebels. Cold called him in New York. Big shot, special. Mm-hmm. He totally took my call, remembered meeting me in Memphis. And he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I got a band." He goes, "Well, what's it like?" And I said, "Well, it's like AC/DC, Deep Purple with some LA, Sunset Strip. It sounded contemporary at the time.
At the time, yeah.
I thought it did.
I got the demos still.
Yeah, wow.
You gave them to me.
Right on, man. So...
it was a mix.
So Fred, the attorney, he instructed us. Fred was the attorney. My great friend Conrad Rayfield, who had managed Split the Dark, pivotal figure. in Chyld and ultimately Brother Kane. He became the manager. Just, it wouldn't have happened without Conrad. I can't overstate that.
Yeah.
And we're great friends to this day. I love him and his family. So with Fred Davis's help and Conrad's help, we started showcasing for labels. And, you know, the music was shifting.
Yeah.
You know, Pearl Jam had just gotten signed, unbeknownst to me. Nirvana was just about to put out their first major label record. Again, all this stuff was off my radar, man.
Yeah. It was off all over.
Yeah,
I remember that.
How would any of us know about any of that?
It was coming, boy, and we didn't have a clue.
Yeah, yeah. But somehow, man, we played for Virgin Records, and an A&R man, Aaron Jacobus, he saw something in me.
Mm-hmm.
He saw something in the songs that we already had, and he saw something in our management that he was like, all right, there's something here. And he knew of the shift that was happening in music, but he just felt like that with my playing and my drive and the band that I had assembled at the time, he thought that maybe we could find another singer and forge ahead. So we spent the next 6-8 months trying out other singers and still playing around Birmingham.
Right. I remember that period.
Yeah.
And then you got to be the singer.
Yeah, man, I got to be the singer.
I remember that.
And Aaron was key in that decision. Glenn Maxey, our bass player, was key in that decision. And, you know, it's interesting because I just backed into it. I didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to do it. And it was literally there was a little desperation of like, well, man, if we lose this development deal that we have with Virgin Records, then that's it. We're done. You know, in my head, I'm like, well, then I am going back to school. I need to go do something else because I didn't want to just go back and play covers and make a living doing that. Nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
But I already had enough of the bug to be a writer and record stuff. You know, I was into that.
Yeah,
man.
sure.
Wanted to be an artist.
Sure.
So once I got behind the mic, we got Scott Collier in the band. Got Roman Glick on the band on second guitar. Who Roman was a bass player.
Right.
And I had only met Roman through a mutual friend in '91. And I just thought he was like the coolest musician I'd ever been around. Like just his vibe, his style.
Right.
And so I just said, hey, man, would you want to play guitar? I got a bass player. I just want you in the band.
Right.
And he goes, okay, let's do it. So that was the first Brother Kane record. So we found ourselves in L.A., made that first record, and again, man, I can go on and on about this stuff. I don't want to rattle on too long, but we made that first record, and different to Witness and the Delta Rebels, and even Split the Dark. Man, we put out that first single, and some stuff started happening.
Right.
Got No Shame.
Yeah, right.
Certainly changed my life. It gave me a career. That song, with that incredible harmonica performance by Topper Price.
Right.
That song gave me a career.
Right.
Because it got enough traction at radio that we were able to release a second single, which did okay, and a third single that did okay off the first album.
Yeah, and your co-writer was
Marty Fredrickson. Marty Fredrickson.
Yeah.
And so without question, man, I mean, Marty was pivotal to the success of Brother Kane.
Right.
We had plenty of other songs, but none of them were the quality of songs as the ones that Marty and I wrote together. Hard Act to Follow, Don't Turn Your Back on Me, The Road, of course, Got No Shame. So that really was kind of the...
Did you write Woman?
I wrote Woman with another guy.
I love that song.
My
It's
friend
on your live record.
Yeah, man. Matter of fact, I just reconnected with Parthenon. He's a massive talent. Parthenon is in... he's in the version of Electric Light Orchestra.
Okay.
Like he does all the Jeff Lynne stuff.
Okay. Cool.
Because Jeff Lynne had kind of given the other original members like the right to go out and play
it, okay.
and they did it for a long time. Well, he was in the band and still is in a version of it. I think they call it ELO. They call it something now because now Jeff Lynne's back and
Yeah.
Yellow. So we did a festival together in Finland this summer.
Wow.
And I had not seen him since we wrote Woman together in 1991 or 92.
Wow, that's crazy. I come
So such a special thing to reconnect with him. And I sent him that live version that we put on the new album.
That's cool.
He loved it. So yeah, man, you know, again, I just so fortunate to cross paths with some massively talented people.
So let's talk about just the Dave Anderson version of that band.
Right.
With that happened, 95, coming up into 94, 95.
Yeah, you know, I have to say that over the 2 years we toured the first album, you know, the first record was certainly a little more steeped in kind of my Southern influences.
Right.
Some, you know, hard blues stuff.
Right.
I wouldn't have admitted it at the time because I thought I was too cool, but I have no problem admitting what an influence the Black Crowes were.
Sure.
Love that band. Love everything they did, man.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we were definitely borrowing some from that sound. But then, yes, everything changed. And we were listening to these amazing records like Bad Motorfinger from Soundgarden, Bleach by Nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it was everywhere, man.
Right.
There's no way you couldn't be affected by it.
Right.
And the other big record for me was not the first Pearl Jam record, but the second one, Versus.
Mm-hmm.
That's in my top 20 albums of all time, man.
Okay.
And not because of the guitar playing. It's
Right.
the energy, man.
Okay.
The lyrical content, the way Vedder gets his point across. Those songs just spoke to me, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Rearview Mirror, Linda Knows. That has to be played at my funeral.
Wow.
You know, that song like changed my life. So there's no way that music wasn't going to influence us.
Right.
So we felt like we wanted to attempt to evolve a little bit more musically. And, you know, we just felt like, you know, with Roman going back to the bass, which was his original instrument,
Right.
all of a sudden he became much more a contributor musically to what we were doing.
Right.
And that guitar spot was open.
Right,
and
right.
I'll never forget, somebody mentioned David Anderson. And I knew about Dave. We had met, and I had heard him play, and I knew the guy was out of his mind, talented,
Sure.
like so good.
Yeah.
So out of the blue, I get a call from Dave. He called my house, and he's like, "Hey, man, I hear you guys are, you know, wanting a guitar player, and I'm calling to tell you I'd like to come down and jam. I'd love to. I don't know if you're holding auditions or what you're doing." And I just said, "Dave, dude, you are way overqualified to be the guitar.
I think you told me that.
To be the second guitar player." I felt it then, and I feel it now. Dude, David Anderson is one of the most talented people I've ever played music with. And I've played with a lot of talented people since Brother Kane.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Dave is so great.
Yeah, he's great.
So I give him a lot of credit, man. He came in and assumed the role. And again, man, I'm still making a lot of that stuff up as I went. I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, looking back on those 3 albums in that time period, man, I could have been a lot better. I could have done more. I could have been a better band leader. I could have had a better work ethic, you know.
Mm-hmm. You had a better work ethic.
Just a lot of distractions, man.
You're like the workingest person I know.
Well, the 90s were rough in that because, you know, we were traveling a lot of distractions, a lot of the cliched distractions, you know.
Yeah, okay.
Booze and drugs and girls, all of that was around.
Yeah.
And, man, when you're young and if your moral compass is just a little skewed and you're in a rock and roll band opening for Aerosmith.
Right. Yeah.
So Dave,
Right.
overqualified, amazing.
Right.
And, you know, he came in and did a great job. The second album, Seeds, it achieved even more at radio. Full Shine On was the #1 rock track for 7 weeks.
Plus it was
6 or
soundtrack,
7
right?
weeks. Yes, it made its way onto a Halloween movie,
Right.
Halloween 6.
Wow.
And
That's cool.
you know, we just got a lot of profile from that song. We got the Van Halen tour from that.
The 95.
All because they loved that song and had heard of the band. So, yeah. And so then we transitioned into making the third album, Wishpool, which is my favorite album, top to bottom of all 3 albums. But it was different. The band had evolved even more. The music business was evolving. There were a lot of challenges for us at our record company because for all the changes that were happening in music, Virgin Records was just a hot mess. It's like there was a new label president every other year. There was a new product manager every other year.
That was going on.
So for us, it was like we were starting from the bottom rung of the ladder every record.
Every year, yeah. With
And
changes.
So we thought we did make a great record with Wishpool. Kelly Gray produced it.
I remember that.
And we had real high hopes for that record. We were very confident, and it really didn't happen. So we had another number one rock track, but just the sound of the business overall was changing. You had bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit were hitting, and I just knew without a doubt, like, man, I'm not. That music doesn't speak to me.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's bad.
No,
it doesn't speak to me.
Yeah, that's not good.
So where can we even exist in the business anymore? So we were too heavy for pop radio, but we weren't heavy enough for what had become rock radio. So it just kind of ran out of gas. There's no crazy drama breakup story. We were just exhausted, man. Everybody was getting divorces at home, and it was just a mess.
I just called it at that point.
We called it. And so I transitioned. I kept writing. That's where the Stevie Nicks song came together. I wrote with John Shanks. I had a batch of songs that I was thinking about maybe a solo record.
And then you go to John Waite.
The John Waite thing came, man.
How did that happen?
Really special. Buck Johnson.
Okay.
Buck Johnson had just gotten...
He's from Pleasant Grove, right?
That's right. Shady Grove.
Shady Grove, which is...
Shady Grove.
That's where my wife's from over there.
Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I was just about to marry my second wife, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
And Buck called about John Waite.
Mm-hmm.
And I was grateful to him, man, because there was nothing happening.
Right.
I was playing some bars and playing covers and just, doing whatever I could. And
were you doing welfare at that point? Was that...
We hadn't started the welfare yet.
Before.
We hadn't started the welfare yet.
Right.
And so the John Waite thing was great, man, because my very first run of shows with him, we were part of a package. It was Journey, Peter Frampton,
I was at that
John
show.
Waite. Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
John's one of the all-time great singers ever. Really embraced me and my family and what we were doing, and it was a great experience. And 2 years later, I get the call about Alice Cooper, and again, it just came out of nowhere. I know there are guys. It's like being here in Nashville. There are people that pursue Nashville radio songs. They go after it every day.
Right.
And God bless them.
Right.
The same with guys looking for gigs in other bands. They go after these sideman gigs.
Right.
For whatever reason, man. The phone just rang. My buddy Eric Dover.
Yeah, Eric.
Who you know.
Yeah.
From Jasper, Alabama.
Yeah. I saw him last year out in California.
Fucking Eric, man. He
and another talented...
No, him and Dave Anderson, man. Those two guys, they are like Paul McCartney and Jeff Lynne of Alabama. Those two guys.
Right.
So talented. But... man, to have Eric speak up on my behalf, because he had been in Alice for a few years. He was moving on. And he just told him, said, hey, I know the guy. If he's available, this is your guy.
Yeah. And
when Eric called me and told me about it, I thought he was drunk. Like he's playing a joke on me. Like this is like some sick joke to tell me that I'm going to audition for Alice Cooper. And a few weeks later, the phone rang and it was Alice's tour manager saying, hey,
wow,
you've been recommended. Here's the audition. So our son Gabriel was born on a Tuesday, and Thursday morning I got on a plane and flew to L.A. to audition for Coop. And so, yeah, man, got the gig, played with Coop the end of 2004, all of 5 and 6. I had already done Slave to the System. That is one thing that I had done around the time of John Waite and Alice Cooper. So that record was kind of in the can. So that came out officially in 2005, which was cool.
Right. And you did some shows with that.
Did a few shows with that.
Right.
But then I put Whiskey Falls together, or I joined Whiskey Falls. They had already had the band, and that was with Buck's involvement again. Buck was a key
and you were in Cooper, then out of Cooper, but into this.
Out of Cooper for 2 years, did Whiskey Falls for 2 years.
Right.
Back to Cooper when Whiskey Falls ran out of money.
Right.
And
all that whole same thing happened.
Yeah, man, it was a little bit like was sort of like witnessing the Delta Rebels. Achieved a lot more. We got a lot more profile. We did some amazing gigs, man. And what a great band. The sound was great.
Yeah.
But it was center cut, for country radio.
Right.
I won't say I was as spiritually connected to it as I was some other things I had done.
Right.
But I certainly could recognize that the songs were great. And there was a market for it. Like, okay, well, if we can get lucky, who knows, man, some things can happen.
Right. So then you go Whiskey Falls back to Alice.
Back to Coop, 2009 and 10 and 11. And that's when the Thin Lizzy thing came. And that was wild because I wasn't looking to join another band.
Right.
I was starting to think again about my solo stuff. I was starting to really get the itch to kind of pursue that. And so many people know the story about the Thin Lizzy thing. We did a show in Dublin. It was Def Leppard, Alice Cooper, Thin Lizzy on the same bill.
And you know who was there?
Oh my God.
I was there, bro.
Dude, that's right. You were there.
Remember that?
Wow. I do now. I didn't even thought about that until...
You know what? You said that one of your acoustic gigs. You said, you were there. And I was like, and you said, wasn't I so happy? And I was like, yeah, but you were really sick. You had a cold, really bad cold.
Oh, yeah. At the show in Dublin. Oh, I totally, man. God.
You had a bad cold. But yeah, I'm sure you're really, well, that was just developing out of that whole set of shows,
Yeah, so that was...
You're with Cooper.
I'm with Coop, and it was at that show that my buddy Tommy Hendrickson, that was in Alice Cooper with me, he was the first person to hear that Thin Lizzy needed another guitar player. And he famously said to Richard Fortas, he goes, well, you guys should get Johnson. He knows those Thin Lizzy tunes better than all you guys. With his badass East Coast accent. So, again, I just like, well, that's not going to happen.
Right.
They had Vivian Campbell and Richard Fortas.
Right.
They're not going to put me,
Right.
And so that run of dates ended. I was home. Sure enough, man, their management called. Ace Trump with Thin Lizzy's management. Fine Canadian. Ironically, huge Brother Kane fan.
Wow.
Loved Seeds. Loved Entwhistle. Had seen us play, all that stuff.
Right,
So he was more dazzled that I was in Brother Kane than he was that I was in Alice Cooper. But Scott Gorham I knew because we had met previously. Another huge idol, big hero of mine.
Right.
So
that's one of the stories I want to touch on before you leave. But
okay, well, yeah. So that was how that came together.
Yeah.
So I transitioned from Coop into Lizzy, and we toured for all the rest of 11 and all of 2012. And in 2012 is when Scott had said, "Listen, I think we finally have the band. I'd love to maybe record some songs."
Right.
So for 5 minutes there, we thought it was going to be a Thin Lizzy record.
Right.
But thankfully, clearer heads prevailed quickly.
Right.
Because we realized the songs were very good.
Right.
But it wouldn't matter how good they were if we put it out as Thin Lizzy without Phil Lynott. It would have been a massive mistake.
Right.
A big mistake.
But
I can see why, the business people involved would think it's a reasonable idea.
Right.
But spiritually, it's a terrible idea.
Right. Well, yeah, there's such reverence for Phil. But you carry on with Black Star Riders, and how do you classify what you're doing? Is it a tribute sort of to the sound of Thin Lizzy or a whole new thing?
The first album was, but it's not anymore. We're 3 albums in. We're starting to write the 4th album right now.
Yeah, I mean, and I've noticed the progression.
It's totally morphed into its own thing.
Yeah, like Kingdom of the Lost is one that when I go back and I think Gary Moore, I think of those.
Oh, man. Well, that's the beautiful thing about having Ricky Warwick involved because Ricky is a Belfast boy.
Yeah.
He's from the same
Irish
town that Eric Bell and Gary Moore are from.
Right.
And, for me to be influenced by Thin Lizzy is one thing. For Ricky to be is a whole other matter. Because he grew up in Belfast. He grew up in the Troubles, man. He grew up with just a hot mess, man.
Right.
So
that we all know about from back in the day.
Yeah, man. So it's a whole different experience to a connection to that music. For me, it was just about these great songs and playing guitar and having fun. For Ricky, it was a way out. Like, this is a future for me. This is my way to get out of Belfast and see the world and not just stay on a farm or work a job in the city. I want to do something else. So that kind of intent is what made Black Star Riders special, and it's special to this day.
Yeah,
I couldn't be prouder to be involved in it.
I mean, that's got to be like, playing with Gorham is surreal.
He's a legend, man. Scott's a legend, and Ricky and I are eternally grateful for Scott giving us the platform.
Right, you guys
kind of handing us the ball, say, "Here you go, guys."
Right, you guys do most of the writing.
Run with it.
Right.
Well, he recognizes our skills, he recognizes our work ethic, and he recognizes our chemistry.
Right.
None of those are a given ever in any situation.
Sure.
So we have all of that, man. So it's a good thing.
So I want to do some the highlights of your career. Now I'm gonna
those were all highlights.
I know. But these are like freaky, crazy things that you've done that I've watched and just sat on my couch watching YouTube or whatever, or I've been there.
This doesn't involve any girls at Norm's, does it?
No, it
doesn't.
Doesn't. None of that.
Just making sure.
I don't even remember that. All right. Back at Namm, you played with, this is back about early 90s, John Entwhistle and Joe Walsh.
Yes.
Remember that?
Oh,
and I videotaped it. I was there.
I'll never forget it, man.
And I heard that one guitar was in standard and one was in flat.
Brother Kane is invited by Epiphone Guitars, who were sponsoring us, to perform at the Namm show.
Right.
In, what would that have been, January 94?
Yeah,
January, February, but it was definitely 94.
Right.
And we're playing the little bar there in Hilton. The Hilton.
Right.
And it was just chaos, man. People are having a blast, and we're up there rocking out. I remember we did a cover of Jailbreak, and the first person to jump up on the table and raise a beer to toast us was Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden. And I just thought, fuck, this is killer. So we're playing away. The Gibson guy comes and goes, "Hey, Damon, Joe Walsh is here. He wants to jam." I was like, let's have him. Let's have him up here right now. So Joe, this was early 90s.
Right.
Was a hot mess.
Yeah.
We loved it. Joe got up, arm around us. "Hey, man, we're going to jam the blues." So we played the blues, and it was great. And Joe's just singing and sounding killer, and we're just...
He did Rocky Mountain Way.
We're in awe. Well, Rocky Mountain Way, we played second, I think.
Right.
And then the Gibson guy goes, "Damon, John Entwistle's here." And I was like, let's have him. Get him up. Let's go. Joe Walsh, John Entwistle, these hillbillies from Alabama. This is a hot mix, man.
That's great.
So, but John, also a hot mess in the early 90s.
Right.
We're all half step down playing Rocky Mountain Way.
Right.
John gets up, just plugs his bass straight in to another amp. He's in standard tuning.
Right.
Because apparently John's been making the rounds to all these different jam situations. It was chaos. It was musical chaos. I will never forget Scott Collier's laughter playing the drums, and I thought he was going to fall off of his drum stool. He was belly laughing.
Wow.
And no one cared.
I know.
No one in the audience.
Nobody cared. I remember it was awesome though. That was, I had some pictures of it at the house, man. That was like the first big star thing I ever saw you do. I was like, wow. But it only gets better.
That's a pretty big star thing.
It only gets better. Okay, so I'm at the Kiss concert in 2000.
Yeah.
And Ted Nugent's on stage, and he goes, "I'm going to get my buddy up, Damon Johnson.
My Alabama soul brother."
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
And you did Cat Scratch Fever with him. And I'm in the audience going, what?
Crazy, man.
That was
great. Ted and I had, we'd become friends. Brother Kane did several dates with Ted back in the 90s. And we spent a little time together in the Damn Yankees.
Right.
We wrote some songs. For 15 minutes.
You said 15 minutes.
Yeah. So Ted had come to town, and he called me, and he didn't ask me if I wanted to jam. He says, "You're getting up." And I said, "Killer, brother." So he calls me up on stage, man. Marco was on bass, Tommy Aldridge on drums.
Wow.
And I don't know if the light guy did this on his own or if Ted organized it, but when I came up on stage, they turned on all the house lights, and I swear, man, I could see every person in the audience that I recognized. People from Al's Crossroads, people from Louie Louie's, people from Southeastern Attractions, a booking agent, my neighbor down the street, just, you know,
that's
it was killer.
That's killer, man.
Killer.
So, let's see, Johnny Depp, you jam with Johnny Depp.
Yeah, man,
That's
that was
crazy.
special. What a great guitar player. What a good guy. Truly talented on guitar.
Right.
And the thing I've taken away from that, man, is I've seen Johnny again since then, and the guy came up to me and called me by name.
Really? Wow.
You know,
Wow, that's cool.
talk about somebody that meets a million people.
Right. Good
So
stuff.
I got nothing but love for Johnny.
So when you're in Cooper on the road, what's those giant festivals in Europe like? Some of those are gigantic.
Yeah, man.
Did you play Wacken?
We played Wacken once with Coop. I've done it once with twice now. No, I want to say I've played that festival 3 times. Maybe it was twice with Coop and once with
like 100,000
Black Star
people.
We did it. It was 80,000. I have the photo to prove it. It's
I remember some of those photos.
you know, people inflate those numbers. It's easy to go, we played this big festival and it was 60,000 and it was more like 9,000.
Right.
No, I have a photo, man, that I need to get framed and hung up in our hallway there. But it was big. It was big.
Is that freaky?
Some of them are so big, man, it kind of takes your breath away for a minute.
Really, when you walk out?
You know, you walk out and you're trying to like kind of be cool and you're like, wow, it's big.
It's a C. So here's a big one. You ready?
Yeah.
iHeart, Sting, Steven Tyler, Jeff Beck, and you.
You know, I should just get up every morning. You know, some people pray to God, some people pray to Allah, some people pray to Buddha.
Right.
I should get up every morning and just pray to Marty Fredrickson. I should get some coins made that say, "In Marty we trust."
Right on.
But Marty called me. He said, "Hey man, I'm doing a gig with Steven. Would you want to play guitar?" And of course I said yes. I didn't need to hear anything else. It's like, you and Steven playing in Vegas, I'm in. And he goes, "Well, would you be cool playing rhythm guitar?" I said, "Of course, man, whatever you need." "Who's on guitar?" "Jeff Beck." I literally, I think, fell off the chair that I was sitting on. I mean, it was just, you know,
wow.
That's just not a call you get every day. And he goes, "There's more." He goes, "We're going to have a guest bass player on Sweet Emotion." And the first person I thought of, believe it or not, as corny and crazy as it sounds, was Geddy Lee. I'm like, okay, well, this is a dream band already. So if he's saying there's a guest bass player, it's either Geddy Lee or John Paul Jones.
Wow.
And I started naming names. And he goes, "No, better than that. Better than that." I forget some of the names I said, but when he told me it was Sting,
man, God.
I don't have an adjective to give you to describe how that felt.
So I'm watching the videos of you rehearsing with them, and you are teaching them the song.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know
you
about
are
that.
teaching Sting, Sweet Emotion.
Sting was amazing, man. In my top 10 influences as a writer of all time, man. He's just special, man. He's a Beatles level for me.
Right.
So to get to meet him and he be everything that you had heard and hoped he would be, he was that and more.
Wow.
And he came over and he said, "Damon, I'm really having it." Because, come on, man. It's not like Sting was at home listening to Aerosmith records in the 70s.
That's what I say.
Ever.
He's never done any of that. Yeah, I was like,
no.
Damon's played way more covers than those guys.
Yeah, right. So he asked me for a little help. And I tried as best I can. Dude, you can't. Tom Hamilton's part on Sweet Emotion is legendary, man. There's not too many people that are ever going to play it like Tom, Sting included.
Right.
So Sting kind of fell into a thing that worked.
Right.
That was more his own.
Right.
But little footnote, if you watch the YouTube clip now from iHeart, from the performance, every time we're going, Sting can never get the count when to do the final push back to the verse.
Right.
He goes, I'm wrestling with it. I said, "No problem." I said, "I'll cue you. Just look at me." So if you watch the video, Sting's playing up next to Steven here, and I'm kind of off to the left of Sting. And you can see Sting playing, looking cool in his shorts and his yoga shirt, because he just walks out of the dressing room. He's playing, and you just see him kind of look. Just, you can't even, if I had told you about it, you wouldn't have noticed it. Right. But you see him glance, and I go, just nod my head. Wow. So at the end of that gig, night's over, Linda and I are packing up. I'm headed to the dressing room to get my bag so we can head out. Sting and Trudy are leaving the dressing room. And Sting drops his bag. He hugs me, kisses me on my face. He goes, Damon, you were my wingman for the entire length of my heavy metal career. Trudy hugged and kissed me. She said, Damon, thank you for taking care of him. He would have been lost without you.
Wow, man. That is great.
I love Sting and Trudy. I hope I get to see them again.
That is a great story. I got one more. I need to know one more thing.
Yeah.
Talk about the Van Halen stuff, of course.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
What was that whole tour like? And is there something in that tour that Dave Anderson didn't already tell me? I know about his story. We already covered his story.
I don't know, man.
So you think that
he told you the story about Michael Anthony and Hey Houston, I just shit my pants.
No, he never told me.
Oh, my God. Well, there's two killer ones. The first one is that first day of the tour, we played Dayton, Ohio. The tour manager came over to me in catering and says, hey, Damon, I'm Scotty, tour manager. I've talked to your people. I know you're a big fan.
Right.
He goes, I think Eddie's down in the dressing room. Just go on down. Say hello. I'm like, I just leapt up, run down to the dressing room. Eddie's not in his dressing room. I went to 4 different Van Halen dressing rooms. No Eddie.
Really?
So I'm like, well, I'll just have to catch him later. So I go back to our dressing room. And there's Eddie with his back to the door, going through our cooler looking for some kind of iced tea because he was sober then and playing his ass off.
Right.
So the first time I meet Eddie Van Halen, I go, hey, why don't you go to your own dressing room and get something to drink? And he turns around and he goes, are you Damon? I said, yeah. I was like, wow, man, I'll never forget it as long as I live. The other story is that every night when they would play Jump, Michael Anthony would always go up to the microphone because, it's a Sammy.
Right.
And Sammy would sing some of the Roth stuff, but he would just turn it into a party.
Right.
So the second verse of Jump, Roth sings, oh, hey, you, who said that?
Right.
How you been? Right. Well, that was the point of the night. Every night, Michael would go up to the microphone and go, hey, Dayton, how you doing?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And the place would go batshit crazy. Every city.
Right.
I can't remember the other places we played, all of them. But I remember we made our way down to Texas. We played that giant amphitheater in Houston. There's 24,000 people. That's a real number, by the way. Well, we would always go to Michael's little room behind his bass rig where Kevin Dugan, his tech, was, and they'd have the Jack Daniels, and it was just always a party and so much fun for us, man.
Right.
So me, Rachel Bolan, and Roman are standing there in Michael's world, and Eddie's doing a solo. So Mike's back there with us, and we're laughing and cutting up, and we go, listen, Mike, you can say anything you want and Jump, and everybody claps. It doesn't matter. We said, we're going to bet you $50 you won't go up to the mic and go, hey, Houston, I just shit my pants. So sure enough, he did it.
Oh.
The place went crazy. We are on the floor laughing. It is one of my greatest road memories of my whole life. Wow. I will cherish that. Me, Snake Sabo, Rachel, Roman on the floor. Just, wow. You can't make it up, man. It was so much fun.
That is crazy, man. Well, I've got a few last questions for you.
Sure, man.
Describe your feelings about music in one word.
Love. There's no other word, man. Every great thing that's ever happened to me is because of music. It's brought me my family, my kids, my work. Music is my passion and my livelihood, and it's all love, man. Right.
So, as far as advice for other musicians, young, aspiring musicians, what do you tell them?
It's all about that word. It's all about love, man. You have to love it. I don't know how great it is as a vocation.
Right. Right. But you decided to make it your vocation.
Well, as I've said before, man, it kind of picked me.
Right.
I wouldn't change anything.
Right.
There's ups and downs from a business standpoint. It's not an easy business, but it's given me this life, and I've been able to, hack a, 3-decade career out of it, and I plan to go 3 decades more. So, I tell anybody that's interested, you got to love it. I have a nephew that's playing drums, and he's got the bug, and he's getting really good. and he asks me all kinds of questions, and I answer all of them. But I always end it with, "Do you love it?" He goes, "Oh yeah, Uncle Damon, I love it." I'm like, "Well, then you're going to be fine."
Well, yeah.
I said, "All that other stuff will take care of itself."
Right, you got to love what you do.
Well, yeah, I mean, in music, you do.
Yeah,
you got to love it, man, because you know, there's plenty of other jobs you can go get, man. If you want to make money, make a lot of money.
Sure.
I don't know that music is it.
Sure. Well, you know, I was in sales for all those years, and when I got a chance to come back to music, man, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be here all the time.
You love it, man.
Yeah, I knew it. I just did, you know, I knew that I needed security, and that was something I tried to do that with, and I did. I did some things to do that, but when I came back, I was like, you know, I could have probably just stayed the whole course, but it worked out how it worked out.
Hey, man, listen, you are in a group of friends, you know, from my life that, you know, music has always been a huge part of it, and you know, all these relationships that I have to this day are all from music. So it makes me happy anytime I see someone, especially from the good old days, you know, that's got a great new idea, that's putting out some new music, or they're playing some gigs, or they've built a guitar, they've built a lap steel, and they put a unique pickup in it. You know, I love all that stuff, man. It's all, you know, because all of you have made me who I am, you know, and help me get to this place.
We love to watch the whole journey. I mean, it's been incredible what you've been able to do. And, you know, when somebody is young and they're thinking about doing it, they at least know that it has been done.
Well, it's definitely
and for you, man, it's just like you said, they're just the things that have happened. It's just incredible.
Well, thank you, Jeff. You always say, you know, you're always really gracious, brother.
Well,
and it's always great to see you. And, you know, it just gives me pause for another thought. I mean, I got to give a lot of credit to my folks. You know, they didn't do everything right, but they got some things really right. And they taught me about hard work. They taught me about people skills.
Sure.
You know,
well, that's one thing I was going to ask you.
A good handshake, you know, being on time. Yeah. Being a man of your word, like you tell somebody you're going to do something, you need to be there and do it.
Yeah, that's what I told her. I said, if he says he's going to be there, he will be there.
Well, man, listen, I know you've put a lot of love into this, and you know it's flattering that you've reached out as much as you have. It's just the schedule's been nuts.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I'm glad that we were able to make a window to do it, man.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you coming up here.
Well, I appreciate you doing it with me today, and I hope that we can get back together sometime soon.
Listen, man, let's do part 2.
Hey,
we can talk about some
man,
gear and
we can do some more stories because I know you got thousands of stories for sure.
Well, you got great questions, brother.
Thank you, man, for being with me today.
My pleasure.
All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out with us on Final Resonance TV and Musical Journeys, episode number 9. Damon Johnson.